Okay, so you've built an automated process and you're about to launch. Wait! In this video, we're going to cover 5 things you must have in place after you've automated before you've launched. Make sure you've got these 5 things ticked off, otherwise let's get them set up for you right now. If you don't have them in place, you're just going to be in a world of frustration, it's going to cost you, and the end users are going to be very disappointed, and there's going to be a lot of expensive changes. So here's my top tips for getting them set up quickly, coming up. Hi guys, I'm Tony and this is Intelligent Automation Simplified. These videos were created to simplify intelligent automation for business leaders and people new to automation to level up your knowledge. We want to make sure you're empowered to optimize your business and discover new technologies in a lean and accelerated way. If you're looking to accelerate your learning curve and future-proof your career and your team, like and subscribe, hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every time I release a new video. Okay, so you've come a long way. You've found the opportunities, you've designed it, built it, you've tested it, and you're ready to get going. But you want to make sure that what you've built is fit for purpose and that it also gets used. And you want to make sure that what you're delivering meets expectations. So here's 5 things keep the business and the users happy campers. Number 1 is UAT. And UAT stands for User Acceptance Testing. Basically, this is making sure that the end user who's going to be using or interacting with your automation is happy. But without this, you won't be able to evidence that you've delivered what the user wanted. And there may have been some misunderstandings in translation, but if it doesn't work or if it's not fit for purpose, then they're just not going to use it. It's going to be sitting there not delivering any value. So did you create a list of user stories? This is something you should have created, or the business analyst should have created whilst they were talking and reviewing the process and the need for automation. You want to make sure that you can tick off these user stories, which is basically what the user wants the robot to do. Tick this off during the testing so that your development and the user teams can agree that what they wanted has been built. An example of a user story is, as a user, an operations team or whatever their title is, as a user, I want to be able to do something so that I can achieve something. And you want to understand exactly all the things the user wants this automated process to allow them to do. So once you've got that list of user stories from the user, you want to make sure that you have some acceptance criteria wrapped around each user story. And this is what you're actually going to be testing against. So if they want to log into SAP, then the acceptance criteria should be making sure that it was able to put in the right email and the right password, click the right submission button, and then was able to get into the application. So as an analyst who's writing up these acceptance criteria, this helps the developer know exactly what is being tested, so that when you go into the user acceptance test with the person who's going to use this automation, you can tick this off once you confirm that it's logged in or it's done whatever actions you wanted it to do. So when you're doing user acceptance testing, it may be useful to use what's called the acronym SIPOC: Supplier, Input, Process, Output, Customer. Where should the information come from? What's the input format look like? What are the actual process steps? What's the output data look like? Maybe it's in the form of a PDF or an email. And then who is that information going to? The customer. You want to predetermine the expected result. And there's many ways of doing acceptance criteria, but one way is, given that this is the scenario, when the user does this or the automation does that, then some output or expected result needs to happen. Given, when, then. So your business analyst has to help the process owner create these acceptance criteria from the user stories that they were given. so that during the user acceptance test, the process owner has a list of tests they can tick off, and so they can sign off that the automation meets their expectations. Number 2 is hypercare. So user acceptance testing, that's in the test environment. It's not really live, it hasn't been launched yet. But hypercare is when you've launched the automation into the live environment using live data and the real life situations. And this is when you're testing how it responds in all real life scenarios. And hypercare can be called process go live support or warranty period. Generally it's about 1 to 2 weeks, but you could do it longer if it's a very critical business process. The reason we want to test in the live environment is because hopefully by now you should know that the results in a test environment can differ to what actually happens in real life. It's not uncommon, and there's many reasons for this, and there's some videos where we go into why that's the case, but this is why you have to have that warranty period, that hypercare, where you're making sure that everything works and you're catching any errors in the builds. Without hypercare, if you just launched it and let it go and let it go on its own, the bot could be full of exceptions. And if this is to do with finance or to doing with interacting with the end customer or your clients, this could be detrimental, both financially and reputational. So it's advised to do what's called a phased approach. And there's 2 ways of doing this. You could phase out the volume. So say a process takes care of 1,000 customer inquiries every day. You could maybe start with 10 and then 20 and then slowly scale it up to 1,000 instead of just giving it the whole 1,000 inquiries on day 1. Another way is to limit the amounts if it's a financial transaction. So if it was automating some transactions, you could maybe say the automation would only do transactions under £10, then under £100, then under £1,000, and then you can slowly scale up that as well. And this gives you and your development team and support teams enough time to catch any errors, fix any bugs, and quickly respond without it being detrimental. And hopefully by the time you've fully scaled it out, by gradually scaling up, you would have caught a lot of the critical errors. And again, if it's a very critical process and you're quite concerned about this, you can just extend the length of that hypercare to 3+ weeks. And the most important thing about hypercare is the exit criteria, because okay, you could do hypercare, it's you're fixing bugs and you're responding quickly, but you need to say, okay, how do we know that the automation is ready to do its own thing without our supervision? So you should have some predetermined exit criteria that both the automation team and the business team are happy with. Obviously, you can't fix every single error, you don't know every single thing that can happen, but you want to make sure you've taken care of the critical ones, and if there's any small issues that are happening due to maybe bad data being entered into a process, the business may sign off on being happy to take that risk. By the way, if you're getting value from this video, click that like button, and that's really going to help me out. And it will really be helpful for me to know what you're liking about these videos. So just leave your comments below on which number that was most interesting, most resonated with you, or if there's anything you want to know more about as well. So number 3 is automation instructions. So this is basically like a work instruction or a manual, but it's for the user to know, okay, how do I interact with this automation? How do I use it? Who do I talk to when something goes wrong? All that information needs to be in this automation documentation. How does it trigger, or maybe it's scheduled? Help them understand what the bot does so that they have a rough idea what's going on behind the scenes. And also include how the user is going to be notified if the robot's completed, or if it starts, or when something goes wrong. There may also be some do's and don'ts that you want to add in there. For example, for whatever reason, if say the user cannot go into a folder whilst the robot is using it, then you need to list that there. Preferably you'd want to make sure you'd want to control that so the user can't go in there, but if you don't have the ability to do that, you need to make that very clear, the do's and especially the don'ts, to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And lastly, make sure that you write who they need to call or who they need to email if something goes wrong. And the good thing with having a hypercare is that when you give the user these automation work instructions, they can use that hypercare, and they should use hypercare to practice interacting with the automation using that document. And that tells you that yes, this document is fit for purpose, it's clear, it's unambiguous, the user understands how to use it. And this is going to give you confidence that the user has everything they need to manage their automation or their virtual assistant once hypercare is complete. Number 4 is benefits tracking. So you want to ask yourself, did the automation actually do anything? Was it worthwhile? Did it actually make an improvement? And if you don't track or measure the benefits and savings, then how do you even know that it made an improvement? So this goes back to when you were working, or your team was working with the users to design this solution. There should have been a point where they were capturing the key performance indicators, the KPIs, and they were measured before the automation, and then you can measure it afterwards and see that the difference is if there was an improvement or not. So when you've got the staff teams in a workshop and you're listing out these KPIs, you also want to brainstorm, okay, so how are we going to get the data? And how are we going to track it? You know, where's the data going to be from? Do we need to pull it out from a system? Maybe it's in the logs of the number of work items that was automated. Is this a continuous thing that can be automated? Or do we need to go in and track this manually ourselves? But whatever it is, you want to take a look at what the expectations that you had on the business case, on the value that was supposed to be saved, and see how accurate was your predictions. Were you way off? And how can you improve on better estimating the benefits and value that automation can bring? And we'll create some videos on how to estimate this accurately, how to measure intangible benefits, and I'll put some links below. And number 5 is enhancements. Remember, RPA is not a one and done thing, it's continuous improvement. It's part of that whole continuous improvement toolkit. You want to, after you've automated something, you want to circle back, because maybe there's new technology on the market, maybe the technology has moved along, or potentially your business or team has bought new tech, and so your toolbox of capabilities has been extended. With any luck, throughout your discovery stages and running workshops with teams, you should have a long list of potential projects that can be solved or improved or enhanced using new technology. So you could probably go to the budget holder to say, look, we've got 20 projects now that we can implement if we bought a chatbot or OCR or machine learning or natural language processing. You could roll this up into a big business case to say, if we bought this technology for X $1,000, we could save X $100,000. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my video, the 5 types of AI that are coming to your office. And if it's up to you to encourage businesses to invest in new technologies, I created a video which is tips for getting senior buy-in, so that you can get business leaders bought in to investing in new technologies. Okay, so thanks for watching, and if you're loving these videos, I'd love for you to hit that like button and make sure you subscribe, as that will really help me out. But remember, click the bell so you get notified of new videos. If there's anything that resonated with you today, please leave your comments below. If there's anything you wanted to learn more about, and feel free to share this video with your colleagues that will find this insightful. All right, you take care. See you in the next video.